You are sitting on the edge of your bed, completely ready, shoes on, jacket zipped, but your eyes are glued to an unfinished text message on your phone screen. You just cannot bring yourself to hit send. Your heart rate is going up. Why does sending a simple, "I cannot make it today" text hurt so much? Why does sending that message bring a massive wave of relief, followed immediately by a suffocating guilt that haunts you for days? Is this just you being lazy, or is your brain actively trying to save you from an invisible threat? And why do the Monday version of you and the Friday version of you feel like two completely different people? Most people think those who cancel plans at the last minute are just selfish or irresponsible. But psychology tells us a totally different story. What looks like extreme irresponsibility from the outside is actually a desperate fight for survival on the inside. Our productivity-obsessed society hides the scientific fact that social rest is not a luxury. It is a biological need for your brain to survive. Your pattern of canceling plans is not a character flaw. It is actually a strange mental disconnect between your present self and your future self. People who flake at the last minute are usually highly sensitive and empathetic individuals who constantly misjudge their own physical and mental boundaries. When you agree to a hangout on Monday, you genuinely want to go. You miss your friends. You feel mentally excited for that coffee date or dinner. But as the day actually gets closer, something inside you starts to shift. The plan that sounded amazingly appealing a week ago now feels like an impossible mountain to climb. Getting ready, leaving the house, smiling and talking with people for hours, the whole thing turns into a massive burden. You are tired, so incredibly tired. So you cancel the plan. Sometimes a few hours before, sometimes at the very last second. Sometimes you give a real excuse, and sometimes you just say you feel sick to avoid it all. But that is exactly when the real pain starts. You know you are letting people down. You know everyone is starting to see you as an unreliable friend. This guilt just eats you alive from the inside out. So what is the actual science behind this entire cycle? According to behavioral psychology, when we make plans for the future, we actually make decisions for a version of ourselves that does not exist in reality. Research shows that humans consistently fail at predicting their future mental states because we make choices for the future based on how we feel right now. When you make Friday night plans on a Monday, you are probably rested, in a good mood, and feeling energetic. You just assume you will feel the exact same way on Friday night. Psychologists call this an affective forecasting error. Your brain completely fails to predict your future emotional state. Because when Friday actually rolls around, you have just survived a week of unbelievable mental stress, where every day forced you to talk to new people, fake smiles, and prove yourself. Your social battery has hit absolute zero. In this state, the thought of performing socially feels like a literal physical threat to your nervous system. You are not lazy. You are just facing the reality that the present you failed to measure the energy levels of the future you. And this brings us to the science of the intention-behavior gap. Studies show that any behavioral intention only works when it actually stays stable. On Monday, your intention was strong because the goal difficulty was very low. But when the time comes to do that exact same task on Friday, the difficulty multiplies for your exhausted body. Your current capacity can no longer keep up with the promises you made in the past. Your social energy is like a bank account, and you have no idea what the actual balance is. On Monday morning, you signed a massive check, but when Friday came and it was time to cash that check, you realized your account had zero balance. The check bounced. And that bounced check is you canceling your plans. A huge difference between chronic plan cancelers and people who always show up is how they calculate energy. Extroverts gain energy by mixing with other people, but for introverts or highly sensitive people, it is the exact opposite. They have to spend their own energy to interact with others. You might genuinely want to see your friend with all your heart, but wanting something does not mean you have the energy to do it. In psychology, they call this the planning fallacy. We always underestimate how much time and energy any given task will take. When you plan a dinner at 7 p.m., your brain just thinks, I will go, eat, talk, and come home. But your brain forgets to calculate how many hidden micro-tasks are stacked behind it. You have to get ready, drive through traffic, hunt for parking, and sit at a table making small talk. You have to process the noise of the room, the lighting, and the emotions of everyone around you. Then you have to come home exhausted and sit alone for at least an hour just to recover from that mental drain. The true energy cost of a simple dinner is actually massive. So when you cancel plans, you are really just reacting to this giant workload. But the thing people avoid talking about most is the intense anxiety hiding behind it all. As long as the plan feels like some distant future event, everything is fine. But as the time gets closer, your nervous system starts pulling the danger alarm. What will I even talk about? What if things get weird or awkward? What if I am too tired and end up being terrible company? This anxiety spikes so high that canceling the plan feels like your only way out. You are not avoiding your friends. You are actually avoiding your own anxiety. For people pleasers, this problem runs even deeper. When someone pitches a plan to you, your very first internal reaction is probably, "No, I cannot do this." But what actually comes out of your mouth is, "Yes, that sounds great." Why? Because you do not want to disappoint them. You do not want them to think you are antisocial. So you agree to something your nervous system simply cannot handle. You value their feelings so much that you completely forget your own capacity. Then an invisible war begins inside you. Before you finally cancel, you probably fight with yourself for hours or even days. You try to force yourself to believe that going out will be fun, but your body clearly tells you it has zero capacity left. Canceling a plan is not your first choice. It is your absolute last weapon when every attempt to ignore your body signals fails. The people you are canceling on only see your text saying no. They never see the long mental war you fought before sending it. So after hearing all this, you might think, okay, from now on, I will just listen to my gut and cancel everything. If my body says no, I will not go. Sounds like a pretty easy fix, right? But hold on a second. That is not where the story ends. The story actually goes much deeper. Because when you constantly give in to this anxiety and start avoiding everything, your brain gets trapped in a terrible cycle. A 2024 meta-analysis of 70 studies by Dr. Javier Fernandez, published in the Journal of Medical Internet Research, uncovered a strange fact. They used ambulatory assessment, which tracks how human emotions fluctuate in real-time daily life outside of a lab. The data showed that when people with social anxiety use avoidance behavior and skip social situations, their mental stress temporarily drops. This temporary relief actually acts as a dangerous negative reinforcement. Your brain thinks, wow, I dodged a massive threat by canceling that plan. As a result, the next time a totally normal social gathering comes up, your brain treats it like a giant threat all over again. I mean, the thing is, you think you might be protecting yourself, but actually, your brain is pushing you toward even worse anxiety. And the guilt that builds up after you avoid things forces you to say yes to the very next plan, because you want to make up for your past mistake. But since you said yes out of pure guilt without checking your actual capacity, you end up having to cancel that plan too. Guilt, Overcommitment, cancellation, and then more guilt. The vicious cycle just keeps spinning. According to clinical psychology, the root cause of this cycle is an inability to regulate emotions. When we try to suppress negative emotions, we use a strategy called expressive suppression. But research shows that socially anxious people use this avoidance strategy so poorly that it eventually destroys their positive emotions too. They suffer from cognitive affective inconsistency. Their mind says hanging out with friends is good, but their body and emotions scream that it is a highly dangerous place to be. This internal conflict tears them apart. In our modern idea of friendship, we have heavily romanticized spontaneous hangouts, but we forget that some people need way more time than others to recover from a social event. Your friends might be able to hang out twice a week. You might need 2 full weeks alone between events just to function. Neither of these is wrong. They are just completely different energy systems. In a world built on the high-energy social rules of extroverts, your physical limits easily get tagged as you just being flaky or unreliable. The era of text-based communication has made this problem so much worse. Making a plan is incredibly easy now, and canceling it is exactly as easy. Just one quick text. And this extreme ease encourages people to make way more plans than they can actually handle. So how do you break out of this cycle? Honestly, I am not sure this works the exact same way for everyone because every single person is wired differently. But psychology does give us some highly practical ways to fix this. First, build in some buffer time. Whenever someone pitches a plan, do not say yes right away. Say, "Let me check my energy levels and schedule, and I will get back to you." This instantly saves you from the pressure of the moment. Second, make flexible plans. Instead of locking in a hard time, say, "Let's try to see each other sometime this week, but we can figure it out as we go." This lifts the heavy weight of a strict deadline right off your shoulders. Third, be completely honest about your limits. Explain to your friends that you probably cannot hang out every single week. Set realistic expectations from the start. Fourth, look for low-energy alternatives. Instead of a big, loud restaurant dinner, just plan for a quick coffee. Instead of a party full of fake plastic smiles, suggest going for a walk in a park. One-on-one hangouts are so much easier on your nervous system than big, loud groups. Fifth, stop making any promises out of guilt. If your very first internal reaction to an invite is reluctance, honor that feeling. So if you think forcing yourself to go will fix everything, no. Actually, forcing it just makes things worse. It makes you way more exhausted and builds a weird bitterness in the relationship. Nobody but you understands that bizarre piece of sitting alone in your room on a Friday night watching a food delivery app tracker. And enjoying that isolation is not a crime. Some of the greatest creative minds in history protected their alone time fiercely. Virginia Woolf called it a room of one's own. She did not hate people. She just clearly understood the math of her own energy. Canceling plans sometimes is not a problem. The problem is when you cancel out of fear instead of choice. When you consciously choose to be alone, it gives you peace of mind. But when you cancel just to escape your anxiety, it fills you with guilt and stress. That emotional difference tells you if you are on the right track or not. So the next time you feel the urge to cancel, just stop for 1 second. Ask yourself, am I really exhausted, or am I just trying to avoid feeling uncomfortable? Do I genuinely need rest, or am I running away from an imaginary fear? Just get curious about your own mind without judging yourself. And if you happen to be the person who keeps getting canceled on, try looking at this from a different angle. They are probably not disrespecting you. They are probably just making a desperate attempt to protect their exhausted nervous system. Maybe they are just human. The real psychology of canceling plans is not about flakiness. It is a complicated game of emotional regulation, social energy, and self-awareness. Once you understand this mechanism, you can finally break the pattern. You will never have to sit staring at an unfinished text message for hours again. When your battery is completely dead, do you send the text immediately, or do you wait in agony until the very last second? Let me know down in the comments.